There was a time when an entire city existed on just 6.5 acres of land. It housed between 33 and 50,000 residents, creating a population density somewhere between 1 and 3 million people per square mile. For perspective, New York doesn't even break 40,000. This was a place with no government, no law, no regulation. A haven for criminals, refugees, and people looking to start over. It came to existence in Hong Kong through a strange quirk of history. Before it, there was never a place like it. And since, there may never be again. A true dystopian fever dream of reality. This was the time of Kowloon Walled City, known by the people who live there as Ha Nam, the City of Darkness. To understand how such a place could ever exist, we must first go back to the year 1843. China had just lost the First Opium War and was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanjing. As a result, China had to cede some land to Great Britain, an island across from the Kowloon Peninsula, equipped with an excellent deep-water harbor, perfect for trade and for the funnel of opium. The island was Hong Kong. The only thing the Chinese could do was to keep an eye on this new British colony, and so they built a military outpost on the Kowloon Peninsula, known as the Kowloon Walled City. They wanted Britain to know that they were still watching. The outpost held the Yamen, an official office of the Mandarin, as well as about 150 soldiers behind a wall 700 feet long and 400 feet wide, and was a way to police the opium the British were pouring into China through Hong Kong Harbor. Almost 2 decades later, in 1860, a second Opium War broke out, and the Chinese were devastated once again. A new treaty was signed, this time giving up more land. The whole Kowloon Peninsula was taken by Britain, except for 6.4 acres of land. The Kowloon Walled City remained in Chinese control. For 30 years, the British tried to take the city, but the negotiations always fell through. China simply wasn't letting go of that little piece of land. In 1898, another treaty was signed, giving control of Hong Kong, Kowloon, and surrounding Cantonese territories to Britain for 99 years. Yet within this treaty, the walled city still remained the property of China. Over the next decades, the city would become somewhat of a slum. That was until World War II, when Japan's army occupied the peninsula, tearing down its long-standing walls. Eventually, the war ended and Japan receded, leaving almost no trace of the walled city behind. And still, although the physical barriers of the city were gone, the treaty remained. That little patch of land was still Chinese territory, and the refugees flooded in. Perhaps beyond a diplomatic haven, they were seeking something else. The walled city was originally built upon the principles of feng shui, which is more than just a trendy term used by architects and real estate agents. Feng shui dates back to early Taoism and literally means wind-water, or the way of wind and water. It was used as a way to orient buildings in harmony with the natural flow of qi and the 5 elements, as well as the cosmos and the passage of time. When a structure is built upon the foundations of feng shui, those inside the dwelling should find peace, prosperity, and overall harmony. Whatever the reason, the refugees continued to call the walled city home. By 1947, there were well over 2,000 people living there, and the Hong Kong authorities were growing tired of the ever-increasing slum. So on January 5th, 1948, they decided to do something about it. Police stormed the city, removing all the squatters and demolishing their homes. Yet, within just 1 week, they had all returned and rebuilt. Hong Kong police attempted to stop them, and a riot broke out. China caught wind of this conflict and encouraged the rioting, which stretched beyond the city. Even the nearby British consulate was set ablaze. The plight of the walled city had become a rally cry for all of China against their British oppressors. Officials from China even arrived at the city and distributed aid to the settlers encouraging their further resistance. And as the tensions rose even higher, the British finally gave in. They withdrew from their attempts to control the walled city and took a hands-off approach from that point forward. And so the refugee camp of wooden shacks and tents began to take on a more permanent form. More and more people fled there, especially through the 1960s and the Cultural Revolution of Mao's China. However, it wasn't just refugees that continued to pour into the little rectangle of land. China had claimed the city, but really didn't care about it, simply seeing it as a little thorn to keep stuck in the British. And the British had long given up on the idea of controlling it, and so with no government oversight, there was no law and no order. And wherever law and order cease to exist, organized crime will come to fill the gaps. The triads moved in and set up shop, quickly turning the place into a den for criminal activity. The governor of Hong Kong, Sir Alexander Grantham, described it as a cesspool of inequity, with heroin divans, brothels, and everything unsavory. With no government watching, there was no regulation, no building codes, no standards to run your business. And people kept flooding into the city, that was in turn forced to grow. Existing on a mere 6.5 acres of land, it's obvious that the space would be taken up rather quickly, but the citizens of the walled city were those of adaptation. And as they watched Hong Kong begin to sprout upwards, they too would follow. With no need for permissions to build, towers began to rise with increasing speed. Room after room stacked up on one another, the only limitation being the nearby airport, where the air traffic restricted building passed 14 stories. Gradually, those stacks grew closer and closer. Residents referred to some as lovers' buildings, after how they would begin to lean against one another. Eventually, over time, the buildings formed together, creating a hive-like singular unit, a manifestation of human ingenuity, scarcity, and unregulated freedom. So densely packed that light would no longer touch the surface level. Instead, the alleys were left dark and dripping. Wires and piping stretched down every corridor. The corroded and leaky pipes made for the common use of umbrellas through the narrow passages. Trash littered every corner and hallway. The pitter-patter of rats echoed in the dark.
未見過啲老鼠大隻到個肚腩拖地嘅，掂到個地下嘅，好大隻，相當大隻一啲老鼠，好得人驚，有時就會。
The rooftops were a forest of antennas where the children would play in the sunlight, and airplanes would narrowly scrape by.
So I would just wander around in different dark alleys. I would go this way or go the other way, and eventually I will be able to find my way home. But what I really enjoyed doing was to go to the rooftop, because that was the place where we children would gather and play.
And within the city walls, crime was rampant. The triads created and controlled a steady supply of opium and heroin. The drugs were manufactured, sold, and used all within the city, free from the scrutiny of law. It's been said that even the rats were addicts in the city of darkness. Gambling parlors and brothels were the norm, and rooms used for elementary schools during the day would be transformed for sex work, mahjong, and drug use during the night. It was the Wild West of the East. If someone needed to disappear, there was no better place. However, the walled city wasn't simply a criminal haven. Most of its residents were normal people, many of them filled with an entrepreneurial spirit. It was cheap to run a business there, and so there were many. Entire factories existed, mass-producing products and employing working-class families. Plastic, textiles, and especially food were popular exports. That's right, I said exports. Dumplings, noodles, and fish balls were often made in the city and sold all over Hong Kong. Now that's a thought that could make your skin crawl, given the conditions of those kitchens. Ironically, healthcare was another big business in Kowloon, a place where unlicensed doctors and dentists offered their services. And while that may initially seem terrifying, It's been reported that most of them were pretty reputable. Hong Kong locals were known to travel into the city for their routine checkups at a bargain price. Even police were said to be frequent customers. The walled city had become a beacon of unregulated freedom, filth, and crime, a true symbol of anarchy. It was a massive embarrassment to Hong Kong's government, so they began to plot a way to erase it. In 1987, Hong Kong's housing department entered the city and attempted to survey every household within. The structure had been deemed a public safety concern. The risk of fire or collapse was just too great to justify its existence any longer. Hong Kong made plans for its demolition. And while attempts to sweep the city away had long been countered by China, the 99-year lease on Hong Kong would be up in just a decade. China no longer needed the walled city as a political pawn, and so this time, they didn't intervene. However, the eviction process would not be easy, and the authorities knew that, deciding that compensation would have to be a part of the deal. They kept this a secret for a long time, fearing that even more people would move there to get a split of the money. The housing department kept an eye on the population as the plans were formed. Eventually, the compensation package reached a total of $2.7 billion, and this approach worked for the most part. By July 1992, most of the residents had been paid to leave their homes behind. Those who refused were cleared out by riot police, and the city was fenced off, empty and idle, awaiting its demolition. On March 23, 1993, a wrecking ball hit the edge of an 8-story tower. From that point forward, it would take an entire year to tear it all down. The City of Darkness is gone. What stands there now is a park, a serene contrast to what once was. The Yamen building survived the entire time within the city and was uncovered during the demolition. It still stands today. A miniature of the old city can be found in the park, a solemn reminder of what once came to be. A tombstone of a place in time. Kowloon Walled City exists now only in memory, a place so unreal that fiction has tried to replicate it. Traces of the city can be found in so many places. Films, books, anime, and video games have all found inspiration from the lost city. There's no doubt that the origins of cyberpunk were found there. The godfather of the genre, William Gibson, has alluded to it on several occasions. He even created a virtual city based on Kowloon in one of his novels. Gibson even took things to the next level and likened it to the early internet. He's quoted, "I'd always maintained that much of the anarchy and craziness of the early internet had a lot to do with the fact that governments just hadn't realized it was there. It was like this territory came into being, and there were no railroads, there were no lawmen, and the people were doing whatever they wanted. But I always took it for granted that the railroads would come, and there would be law west of Dodge." Beyond its comparisons to the internet, Kowloon Walled City is a celebration of ultimate freedom, a representation of humanity's ability to start over, to build, to survive, to overcome. Perhaps it's not right to celebrate a slum this way, and make no mistake, it was just that, a slum. But light shines brightest in the dark, and the City of Darkness continues to shine in our imagination. There may never be another place quite like it, a freak of history that should have never existed, a cesspool of obsession.